Hey everyone, when you are doing research, one of the most important things is making sure that you are citing your sources and that you're citing them correctly. We need to cite our sources so that we can give credit to them, so that we know where information came from. It also helps to build your own credibility. As you're going, you are going to want to keep track of some information about your resources so that you're able to cite them. If you don't cite your sources, it ends up with you getting a zero, which we want to avoid. So, today we're going to go through what you need to keep track of so that you are able to cite your sources and not have to freak out about getting a zero on this. So the first things that you're going to need are the author and the title. So the author is the person who wrote it. Usually you can find this at the top of the page. And remember that when you cite your author, you're going to put them last name, comma, first name for your Works Cited page. If your source doesn't have an author, you can just skip it and you can leave that part blank. The next part that you're going to need to keep track of is the title. So this is the title of an article, title of magazines, title of articles from websites, newspapers, magazines, journals. They always get quotation marks around them. If you have a book, it would be like a chapter title. It would be a song title if you're using a song. It's the smaller part of whatever you're using. You'll also have to keep track of some other information. So the first thing it's going to ask you for after you do the author and the article title is the title of the container. So this would be the title of the website, the title of the newspaper, the magazine, the journal, the book, the TV show, the podcast, the album, whatever the bigger part is, the big production that you're looking at. This should always be italicized. So if you're doing a website, don't include the www or the .com. So for example, the NewYorkTimes.com would be just New York Times with italics. The next thing it's going to ask you for is any other contributors. So this is anyone else who helped work on the source. List them first name and then last name and label what they did. The next part that comes up is the version. So this is the version or the edition that you looked at. So sometimes you might see like this is the student edition or the teacher edition or the summer edition or the 10th anniversary or the abridged version. That's what you would put in there. The next part is the number. So this is going to be the volume number or the issue number. This isn't a page number. Usually you're only going to have that if you are dealing with like a magazine or a journal. Next comes the publisher. This is usually found at the bottom of the page next to a copyright symbol. Sometimes you'll notice that it's the same as the container, and that's okay. The publication date comes next. This is usually up by the title or down at the bottom of the page. If it's at the bottom of the page, it might only be a year, and that's okay. If it's at the top of the page, it probably has a whole date written out. When we write dates in MLA Citation, we do day, month, and then year. All of your months are abbreviated to the first 3 letters with a period after. So for example, if we had the 6th of January 2020, we would do 6 Jan period 2020. The only exceptions are May, June, and July because those are short, so they won't get a period because they're not being abbreviated. September is another exception. It's going to be SEPT, so the first 4 instead of just the first 3. And then it'll be followed by a period just like the rest. The last part that you're going to have is the location. So this is where you found it. So if you're using a book, it would be the page number. If it's a website, you're going to do the full URL and you can just copy and paste it right in there. Container 2 is going to be used if you found your information in a database. So you'll fill this out in addition to the rest of the sheet if you got your information from a database. For your research, you may use databases. You can go to the Elk River High School website and find the Media Center page, and they have a whole bunch of databases on there for you that already have sources that are deemed credible. So it's kind of helpful because then you don't have to worry if you have a credible source or not. If you use a database, though, you'll have to fill out these 2 extra things. So The title of container for container 2 is asking for the title of the database. This is always italicized. The last thing it'll ask for is the location. So for this, you would put what's called a DOI number, which should be listed on there somewhere, or the URL. If there's a permalink available, it'll say that. You can use that. So when you are doing this, you are going to be putting all of this information into the Google Citation tool, which you'll be watching a video on shortly. If you don't do this as you go, you're risking losing your sources. And if you're not able to cite your sources, you won't be able to use the notes that you took from them. So it's really important to fill out all of this information with the Google Citation tool so that as you go, so that you're not at the end trying to figure out where you got some of this information from.